So we're here talking about where profit meets purpose. But I think I want to start on the purpose side, and I want to kind of roll it back to your sweet spot in leadership. Ramblings from a glass half full. What is leadership? What's your definition of that?
Leadership for me has been a very interesting journey because I realized when I was about 5 or 6 years into my career, and I was suddenly thrust into a leadership role. I mean, I was thrown into the pool, literally. I was 27. Jack Can't Cook hired me to be the operating manager for a cable company, and lo and behold, I was managing, leading. And there's nothing more embarrassing sometimes to get thrown into that position and then to try to adapt and learn and do it. And so it was pretty much by the numbers at first. But what I realized was that by just time and effort and energy of looking at the faces of the people that I was managing and leading, is that I suddenly felt this need to go beyond just, okay, go from here to here, right? Connect these dots, accomplish this, accomplish that, do all this. I found that if I could try to connect with them in a way that said, okay, here's why we're doing this. There's a greater cause here. There's a business we've got, and we've got these goals. But what I want to do is I want to create a scenario where you, the employee, could be happy. Happy. What a concept. And it was it's not a trick. It's not a magic trick. It's if you can create. And this is really the premise in which I lead now, is if you can create situations in a workplace or anywhere, in any organization, anything you lead, anything you do, is that you connect with that individual person's needs and wants and things that would make them happy. Like, for example, in my cable television company, these were people that were going to people's houses, installing cable, real glamorous stuff, right?
Living the high life.
Right, crawling around in crawl spaces, 110-degree attics.
With the dog chasing you.
Right, yeah, exactly. Dog chasing you. Or 20 below zero trying to fix a cable in the middle of the night. They weren't happy at those times. I mean, I wasn't Pollyannish either, but I would talk to them, and and I think Liz referred to it before about honoring their work and saying, hey, this is important work. This is going to satisfy and make customers happy. And think about what happens when you do that. So I kept running through the process with them and asking them, well, what do you want? Well, I just want to come to work every day and have a good place to work and work with a great team and have a management that respects me and respects the work that I do. And I said, fine, roger that. And first of all, they were in disbelief that I was actually in their midst, in their operations, in the field, listening to this in the first place. And then secondly, it says, okay, I'm going to make that happen. And they're going, okay. So you establish this trust, and then you create areas of responsibility and accountability that say, okay, if you do this, I will get you there. And so I started drawing smiley faces up on the board. That was my business plan. Okay.
So back to the first grade, the gold star and the smiley face.
Right. So leadership is getting to the smiley face. And in my last go-around at Bresnan Communications, this cable company, that's the last couple of years, that was it. That was the target. And you know what? It's like a flywheel. People would be coming to work, happy to go to work because we created that environment. We were making them happy. And guess what happens then? Then I could take exactly what they're doing. Now, grant you, I didn't go into the boardroom and say, I got a lot of smiling faces out there. That's really great. But I could go point at some charts and say, we've achieved this, we've achieved that, we've got the cash flow growth, this thing is moving, the truck is moving, the net promoter scores are rising, everything's going through the roof. So it's really connecting the cause of the business with the individual needs to be happy, and that's what I did.
So do you think that the individuals always know or at least can articulate what it is they want? And what happens if they all want different things? How do you get all of these different people on the same page to move them forward towards that ultimate goal or purpose?
Well, I think you have to establish, and Liz and I talk about this all the time, and you'll probably hear a lot more about it tomorrow. about establishing a values baseline. We all speak value language, and I think it's a leader's responsibility to try to sort that all out and say, okay, they value this, they value that, but sometimes they use different language, but they're really talking about the same thing. And like, for example, in my cable environment, it was a lot about respect. You know, respect for what they did, and establishing that, and then having the rest of the company establish that. And while people said it in different ways, because they all said it individually, right? They all had their individual problems. You know, I don't like going out at 2 o'clock in the morning. Or, you know, when I snap on that headset in the morning to do a call center. Anybody ever do a call center job here? What's that like? I did it for, quick aside, I did it for like 20 minutes once. It was the worst experience of my life. It's just bang, you do the call, bang, it's next call, next call. And so you talk to them, you're right, it's a different perspective, but it's really critical as a leader, and we'll talk about this tomorrow as a group, is to try to establish a common values baseline. And I believe that you can do that.
So I guess that's a good segue then into talking about purpose. You started talking this morning about how a leader really needs to have a purpose, and it sounds like you need to tie everybody into that purpose. So we're marrying what they need with this bigger value, something that's bigger than each individual in that organization. How do you go about doing that?
Well, I'll just do it by virtue of an example, since we were talking about my professional experience. So I did all this. I went out to the field. I found out everybody's values, and I wanted to put down a marker that represented the purpose that everybody could rally around. And at first we started, and this is just how you experiment sometimes, we started with 7 values, 7. And we put them out there, did the posters, did the little cards you put in everybody's pocket.
What were some of those values?
Integrity, you know, that sort of thing. And then finally one day I'm out in the field. Wow, this is a revelation. This is a confession. And I was supposed to talk about the 7 values that day, and I'm in the shower, and I said, I can't think of them all. I can't think of all 7.
Dopey, sleepy,
right.
doc.
So I was not doing the condensing that I needed to do. So suddenly it dawned on me, I gotta make it even more simpler. And it just hit me, and I said, serve our customers and support each other. Serve our customers and support each other. That encapsulated, you know, that was tying everything together. That was connecting the dots, right? If I knew that if my folks would do that, they would create success. And then I could tell them if they did that individually, they would be happy. So that was the common link right there. Serve our customers and support each other. That was the purpose.
Right. And what's so interesting about that to me is that it's so simple.
Yes.
And I think that's probably where a lot of businesses go astray, right? Because they have these purposes and these missions that are so complicated that people's eyes are rolling back in their heads. So how important do you think it is to streamline that purpose?
I think it was critical. I don't think we would have achieved the success that we did unless I was there, the leader was there pushing that every day. I required every single one of my employees to know that when I walked up to them. Yeah. And they were like, why at first, right? But you just take my advice, keep at it. Don't let up. It becomes a mantra, right? And mantras sink in. And before you know it, they're doing things, and they're going up to me after they did something really good with a customer and go, serve our customers. That's when you know you got them.
That's excellent. So we have a lot of people in the room here who are entrepreneurs, small businesses, in many cases solopreneurs. So they may not actually even have employees, but they're still interfacing with customers, service providers, collaborators. How do you take those leadership lessons that you've learned in the corporate environment, and I know you're applying them now as an entrepreneur, how do you move that down and make it effective when maybe you're a party of one?
Yeah. I'm going through that right now. And I can tell you that the principles remain the same. They don't change. But a lot of times, and this just hit me right now, that a lot of times it's reconvincing yourself. I've spent so much time over the last 28 years trying to convince other people that they should do this to be happy. And it had been a long time. While it made me happy to do it, don't get me wrong, but when you start getting in an entrepreneurial situation, you kind of have to look at yourself and define those things for yourself, and then you can go out. Because you can apply this not only to, if you don't have any employees, you have vendors, you have networking people that you associate with. I mean, there's nothing wrong with making anybody you encounter, especially as a solopreneur, because everybody's a contact, everybody's a networking thing, and I've learned that here over the last several months, and that there's nothing wrong with sitting down with them and talking about values and talking about what they like to do and what their passions are and connecting with them, because down the road, they'll connect with you.
So is there a common purpose, or are there a number of different purposes, and how do you get everybody aligned, moving in the same direction, while still fulfilling the what's in it for me, their own needs and desires?
Well, here, like Portland's a good example of this, and I think that goes back to the essence of what we're doing here today, was that I felt in talking to a lot of you in this room that I spent a lot of time with talking to about this event and what I do, and the common element about it was there did seem to be, or does seem to be, this element of doing good.
Yeah.
Right? All right, I want to do something, but it's got to have some meaning to me, and it's got to do more than profit. It's got to do good, and I think that is a binding element to a lot of communities, and I think this community in particular is a good example of that, because a lot of that exists here. Am I wrong? I think a lot of that does exist, and so you can rally around that. You can rally around that very well here, especially even as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, because it's like a band of brothers type of thing, or sisters. Sorry, it's like, or a fraternity or sorority. You can start binding together on some of these things, and you may not even actually be in the same business, but you're complementing each other very well and going forward and trying to do good.
Yeah, I like to think it more of like a Brady Bunch, brothers and sisters.
It's a story.
And Alice. Yeah.
Of a man named Brady.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're running short on time, and I do want to be able to take a few questions. But before you get there, I do want to hit on the profit side as well.
Yeah.
So how do you flip? I mean, purpose is important. It's great. It makes you feel good. It doesn't pay the mortgage, or at least not yet. We haven't figured it out yet. So how do you take the purpose and then translate that into a way that serves people, but also allows them to make a living and take care of themselves?
I think you have to realize that, and there's a two-sided coin, right? There were days I would go out and talk about all this high-level stuff, but then there was days I would go out and talk about process. Okay, here's how we're going to do a cable connection. Here's how it has to be done. And then we would measure it, and then we'd manage it constantly and hold people accountable to it. But if you're building this purpose, like, for example, the support each other part, boy, I could use that a lot in saying, well, so-and-so is not meeting their goals. They're not doing what they need to be doing. And I didn't have to be the one applying the pressure. It became sort of a peer pressure type thing. And all of a sudden, they'd be hitting their marks. But you have to have the marks. You have to have process. You have to measure things. It just doesn't happen by itself. You have to connect the two together. And I think most successful business people will tell you that you got to find, my accounting background comes in handy. You have to know this stuff, or find someone who does, and you have to understand process. You have to be able to put them together, take them apart, find somebody who does, and make those processes work towards that purpose.
So does that mean, as an entrepreneur, finding somebody that you're accountable to?
Yeah, I think, and now as an entrepreneur, I find that finding mentors, people that I can bounce things off of, is become more important to me, because you're right. You have to road test these ideas. You have to say, okay, this is my purpose. This is where I want to go. This is the process I want to follow. And you're a solopreneur. You're just talking to the wall most of the time, and that's a hard thing to do. But I've
Does it ever answer back?
Yeah, sometimes it does.
It talks to me too. It's kind of scary.
So I think that's a really important part of even a small business is talking and sharing, and that's why a forum like this is really good, because you do have that kind of opportunity to do that. I think it's important. All right,
I could talk to you all day, but I do want to give the audience here a chance to pick your brain, so to speak. So any questions for Terry?
Pick my brain.
Don't be shy.
Yes.
The one most important quality in a leader or leadership.
Relentlessness.
Alrighty.
I said earlier, I think you have to have that. You have to have that drive. You have to have that, and you have to keep going with it. You just can't be drifting from one thing to another. You can have all these great ideas, but if you're not just pushing it forward, I think you're not going to get there.
Terry, you know some of my story, but this relates to our table talk. But
I'll repeat the question.
as a company like ours is growing rapidly, and you're doing that stair step, and you have your whole team, how as a leader do you keep them? I mean, we're talking about fear. How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them excited, even at times that you're jumping up, you're telling the company or the reporter that you have video that you don't have.
All right, so the question is, how do you keep them motivated outside of just the smiley face on the board? Especially when you're going through growing pains, new plateaus, the up and down the roller coaster. How do you keep that motivation going?
I think it's important, John, if you think of it in terms of everybody at those times, who do they look to? Right? They're looking for a beacon. They're looking for something to say, okay, everything's going to be okay, or not okay. They're looking for honesty. They're looking for respect again. That goes back to that whole thing. And I found in some of those chaotic environments, it's like that calm in the storm. And I think you really have to discipline yourself to be that kind of person where you can't get, you have to, being level-headed is absolutely correct. And at the same time, it's threading that needle between being an absolute Pollyanna, because let's face it, it's not all going to go good all the time, right? And you're going to have down times. But I think, on the other hand, you have to be able to say, and that's why my glass half full thing all came about. It was like I try to look at things, the literal things, and at least to say, okay, what can I learn from this? What opportunities do I have from this? And you have to share that, as a leader, you have to share that point of view with people, and pretty soon people will go, if you can get them to look at it that way, and say, okay, this was a failure, but failures are okay. Right? Because typically in a startup world, you're going to be going back and forth from success to failure. You're going to probably have more failures than success. So I think how you sort of frame that as a leader is going to be critically important, and how that ship continues to just go down the field. But I think it's having a steady hand and trying to use that half-full spin to looking at failures as well as successes and trying to move forward with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, too, that makes me think that they'll be able to look at you as a true barometer.
Right. Well, yeah, if you're walking around, man, today sucked, this was really bad. I mean, of course, that's going to be, I mean, you're the beacon, and I think beacon's a really good word to use. I've experimented that with myself, and I walked into a room kind of like, and boy, it just brings the whole thing down, because they're looking to you.
Yeah. All right, Terry. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for now, but everybody, thank you. Thank you so much, Terry, for sharing.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.